Chapter 2. Everyone piled into two waiting jeeps. In one, Mr. Hammond was talking to Donald Gennaro. "Relax and enjoy yourself. It's completely safe here. All the fences are electrified and the full 50 miles of it are in place." Slowly, the jeeps wound their way along the mountain roads. The island was lush with greenery. Ellie, in the other jeep, craned her neck to look at the tropical plant life. Something seemed odd to her. She reached out for a leafy branch. As the jeep drove along, she tore it off. "This plant shouldn't be here," she thought. "It's extinct." The jeeps bounced down a narrow path, then stopped at the side of a moat. Alan twisted in his seat to look around. There were some very strange trees here. They didn't have any leaves. Alan raised his head, looking higher and higher still. Suddenly his mouth dropped in surprise. Those weren't tree trunks at all. They were legs. He lifted his head back all the way, and the legs belonged to a dinosaur. A living, breathing dinosaur. "Oh," said Ellie, seeing it too. The Brachiosaurus, 35 feet tall, stared down at the people in the jeeps. Mr. Hammond strolled over to their jeeps, smiling happily. He looked like a kid showing off his new bicycle. "You want to pet it?" he asked. No one could answer. The sight of the giant dinosaur was too much. Ian Malcolm just stared in amazement. Then he said, "You did it. You actually did it." Alan still couldn't speak. He could only stand in his seat, trying to get closer to the Brachiosaurus. Then he noticed the other dinosaurs. There was a whole group of them across the moat, munching on leaves from the treetops. He let out a whoop of joy. "Ha!" he cried as Gennaro came running over. Are these... Gennaro stuttered. "They're herbivores," Mr. Hammond said. "Relax, they only eat plants." Gennaro seemed to calm down, but Ian Malcolm couldn't resist teasing him a little. "It could still step on you," he said smugly. Finally, Alan and Ellie found the words that they were looking for. They both began to talk at the same time. "The movement, the grace, it's not what..." Alan said. "The experts said," Ellie continued. "We can just tear up the rule book," Alan finished for her. In the distance, a herd of dinosaurs ran across a grassy plain. "Look," he said. "They move." "In herds," said Ellie. "We were right." Now everyone was chattering excitedly, but the Brachiosaurus didn't take any notice. It had a dull, pleasant expression on its face, and as it stretched its long neck across the moat and passed right in front of the jeep, its expression didn't change. Gennaro drew back in alarm, but the dinosaur was just reaching for some nearby leaves. A moment later, the dinosaur pulled back, dropping branches on the hood like a dribbling baby. Mr. Hammond led Gennaro back to the first jeep. The car started up again, and everyone kept talking as they drove through the park. "The dinosaurs are amazing," said Alan and Ellie. "The park would be a wild success," said Gennaro. All his fears were forgotten. They were going to make millions. The only one who kept quiet was Ian Malcolm. As the jeeps pulled into the main compound, he said one word: "Crazy," and he shook his head in dismay. The main compound was a large area fenced in from the rest of the park. Inside were 3 structures. Walkways led from one structure to another, and workers bustled all around. They were completing the building, finishing walls, placing bars in the window. There was still a lot to do. Only one structure was complete, and it wasn't even a building. It looked more like an animal pen or a prison. Mr. Hammond took everyone to the biggest building. It was the visitor center. In the lobby, 2 huge skeletons were under construction, a Tyrannosaurus Rex and a Brachiosaurus. As the group walked past the scaffolding, Hammond started to explain the park. "It will be the biggest, best amusement park in the world. I'm not just talking about rides. We made living, biological attractions so astounding they'll capture the imagination of the entire planet. Now I bet you're wondering how these dinosaurs got here. Well, it's all part of the miracle of cloning. We made the dinosaurs from blood samples." "Where do you get 100-million-year-old dinosaur blood?" asked Ellie. "You'll see," said Mr. Hammond, leading everyone into a theater. The lights dimmed as everyone took a seat. Then a film came on the screen. A cartoon character that looked like 2 pieces of rope twisted together popped into view. "I'm Mr. DNA. I come from your blood. Your blood has billions of DNA strands. A strand like me is a plan for building a living thing. I'm a blueprint for how something grows. Now, a long time ago, there were mosquitoes, just like there are today. And just like today, they fed on animal blood, dinosaur blood. Sometimes a mosquito would bite a dinosaur. Then it would land on a tree and get stuck in the sap. After a long time, the tree sap would get hard and turn into a fossil, just like dinosaur bones turn into fossils. This fossil, called amber, would keep the mosquito exactly the way it was when it bit the dinosaur. Then the amber waited for millions of years until Jurassic Park scientists came along. They took the blood from the mosquito and bingo, they got dino DNA. But there were pieces missing, so the scientists filled the gaps with frog DNA. Why? Because it's so similar. Then they put the DNA into an empty ostrich egg. Pretty soon, they got a baby dinosaur. Suddenly, bars came down on the seats and the chairs began to move. Alan and the others were taken through automatic doors into a laboratory. The room was bathed in a strange glow, an ultraviolet light that covered dozens of ostrich eggs. Quickly, Alan lifted the bar on his seat. He ran over to the table. One of the eggs was just cracking open. A tiny dinosaur head popped out. "Look," said Alan. The others rushed over. Mr. Hammond smiled. "I like being here for the birth of every dinosaur," he said. But you can't be," Ian put in. "What about the dinosaurs born in the wild?" "Oh, that can't happen," Mr. Hammond answered. "You see, all the dinosaurs are female." Ian didn't believe him. How do you know? Do you go out into the park and lift up their skirts? Because you can't control something like that. Life cannot be controlled. It breaks free, it grows. Life finds a way." Alan, meanwhile, was holding the baby dinosaur. It looked like a yellow lizard with brown stripes. Alan measured and weighed it with lab equipment. He counted the bones running along its back. It can't be that kind of dinosaur, he thought. No one would take that kind of chance. "What species is this?" he asked. "It's a velociraptor," said Mr. Hammond. "You breed raptors," said Alan. His voice trembled just a bit.